Welcome to Life After Ministry. If you hear all the background noise, it's because we are at the American Association of Christian Counselors, and I happen to be sitting across from a man in uniform. It's pretty cool, and we call him Chaplain Jordan Huggins. Jordan, hello.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Great to be here.
What uniform are you wearing? I've been to children's ministry conferences before where there's people like in clown costumes.
Yes.
You are not wearing that. So paint a picture of what we see before us here.
This is what we call our dress blues, right?
Okay.
So our shirt, tie, and this is what we're doing when we're in like more formal environments, conferences, things like that. This is what we're gonna wear. Day to day, you'd see us in what we call our OCPs.
Okay.
That's like the camo uniform that you see us running around with the boots and all that stuff. But this is the conference attire, what I'm rocking right now.
I love that.
Yeah.
You can see mine as a flannel and jeans.
Yes, yeah, that's my after hours uniform. Is that? Yeah, I come from Colorado, so.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
So you represent a branch of the military. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm a chaplain with the United States Air Force and Space Force now.
How cool is that?
Yeah, how cool is that, right?
I love that.
Yeah, so I'm in ministry in the military.
Okay.
So it's a very unique sort of context to be ministering in. Started off in the military and then went into ministry and then back into the military. So kind of a unique track there.
Good. So that's the 35,000 foot view.
Yeah.
And you understand that because you've been in the air before.
Right. But you're speaking my language.
I'm trying really hard, so I'm trying not to be too fake. But I fly, American Airlines, and that's about it. But
okay.
Let's unpack that a little bit. You went into the military, and was that in the Air Force?
Yeah, it was in the Air Force. So I commissioned originally through an ROTC program at Siena College in Loudonville, New York. 2006, and became a second lieutenant in the Air Force, and I was given the job of contracting officer, which is like a procurement world.
Okay.
So lots of government contracts, and did that for 7 years, and went through a bit of like an existential, what I would call like an existential spiritual crisis, like a lot of people do in their 20s, trying to figure yourself out, figure life out, who you are, what you believe, all that. And that really was what led me into a desire to go into ministry. I saw, I myself went through that, and I saw a lot of my friends go through something similar.
And when you say existential spiritual crisis, were you a Christian? Would you call yourself
a
Christian at that point?
Yeah, grew up in the church, was definitely a Christian, but I like a lot of people do in our 20s, I just sort of walked away from it all. Embraced the college lifestyle, if you will, and did all that, and then that continued when I first got into the Air Force. I sort of kept that call it my frat boy days, even though I wasn't in a fraternity, but I embraced that lifestyle.
So you have this moment where the Lord is calling you back. He's bringing you back, and what did that lead you to? Yeah,
so that really led me to question, what is my purpose? Like, what am I good at? What are my strengths? Like, Lord, what are you calling me to do? And really questioning my identity and who I was as a person. And so, that's ultimately what led me into the ministry, and specifically into chaplaincy, was that kind of pursuit.
So unpack a little bit of your ministry life. So
Sure.
Came out of military and went into ministry. What was that ministry? Yeah,
so I left active duty Air Force in 2013 and started attending a seminary in Denver called Denver Seminary. Yeah. Did that for 3 years. I did a full time. I was just like, I'm going to go get my master's of divinity, and I needed to make up for lost time because I didn't have that, that sort of traditional pastoral training track. So I jumped headfirst into that, and then was kind of a volunteer pastor at my local church during that, and interned with my local church. Did a lot of like home visits, hospital visits, counseling, some teaching and preaching, at youth groups, and filling in on Sundays through that whole process. And then worked for a parachurch organization for a few years after seminary. Also working pretty closely with churches in that role. In that role, I was building relationships with local church pastors that our parachurch organization would work with. So working with a lot of pastors, a lot of senior pastors and associate pastors, executive pastors. While I was never like a senior pastor or full-time pastor myself, I got to see like very closely the challenges, the struggles that y'all go through. And I mean, just watching, some of my best friends in the world today are pastors, and just seeing what they go through and the pressures that they're under and stuff, man, I love this ministry for that, that you're.
So you went from military into ministry,
right,
and then back into
the military.
Into the military, but doing ministry in the military. So what was the instigating factor that got you back into that?
Yes. So I mentioned I went through that spiritual and existential crisis, I say.
Right.
That's pretty common in the military. I would say a lot of people, if not most people that come into the military for spiritual reasons. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. They want to belong. They want a sense of community. They want a sense of purpose, a sense of mission. And while the Air Force does a really, really good job at, scratching some of those itches, right? Those are, at the end of the day, those are, as we know, spiritual, existential questions that those people are asking.
Yeah.
And so I having gone through that myself, I look back and I said, man, I would have loved to have had a chaplain or a pastor or somebody that could come along and have intersected with me in that moment of crisis and say, this is the itches that the Air Force is going to be able to scratch for you. But let me point you to some of the answers to the questions that you have that are going to scratch even, the bigger ones that you have, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then they go in, and I know in all of the battles and all the history of the world, there have been battles and there have been borders that have changed, and this battle was won, but these people are gone now. And knowing some people in the military, the bigger question is what I'm doing right now going to matter 10,000 years from now?
Right.
And so you're opening that, and really you're working with a group of people that are asking some of these bigger questions in the midst of defending our country. Right. What are some of the needs of airmen, guardians, right? That's what they're called.
Yeah, airmen and guardians.
Airmen and guardians, I'm learning. But what are some of the needs as they are serving their time that you get to come alongside as a chaplain?
Yeah, so some of the things I just mentioned are probably some of the biggest needs, right? A sense of belonging, a sense of community, a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, right? And so like I said, the Air Force does a really, really good job of providing that. Part of my training, for instance, I'm an officer and a chaplain, right? Like that's our role. Part of my training is we go to what I consider the best leadership training in the world. We go through officer training school. It's an 8-week program in Montgomery, Alabama at Maxwell Air Force Base, right? And it's some of the best leadership training you're going to get on the planet. But that yearn, I think, that we all have for the transcendent is it's going to meet some of that, but not all of that. And so our local pastors, especially local pastors that are in military towns where there's lots of military people, they can provide the rest of that answer to that longing that some of our military members have for that deeper sense of purpose, that deeper sense of meaning. And
are they also just struggling with stuff like just anxiety?
Oh, yeah.
And fear, or even just the being deployed and the disconnect from family and the familiar, and you're stepping into some of those spaces and bringing comfort, but also bringing Jesus.
Yep. Yeah, at a very practical level, so a lot of what I do as a chaplain is counseling, one-on-one counseling with our airmen and guardians. And so it's everything from separation anxiety from, this is the first time for a lot of them that they're away from home, away from their family, from their hometown where they grew up. There's that piece all the way to, as serious as suicidal ideation and depression and things of that nature. So we get this privileged opportunity to sit with people in the midst of that. And so I would encourage, your audience as well, I'm assuming a lot of, people who were pastors and people who may be in that process of transitioning. If you have that in mind, that those are the kinds of people that you want to minister to, the chaplaincy is a great place to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of pastors get into it in the first place, right? Is there's a care for and concern for people.
Right.
And so, and that is one of the questions that we get a lot of times with people who are coming out of ministry. They say, I have this seminary degree. What do I do with it? Right? Yeah. What are my marketable skills, my transferable skills? And so what does it take to become a military chaplain? What are the kinds of people that you're looking for? Because you're recruiting and bringing people in. What are you looking for? And then what are some of the disqualifications of things that you can't take in?
That's a great question.
I remember part of my process in coming out of ministry, being a chaplain in the military was one of those things I was looking at.
Yeah.
But you guys told me I'm too old.
Yeah. So so I'll talk about that first. The cutoff is 40 years old. Yeah. Is the cutoff. It's a young person's game, man. You got to be able to run, jump, get up real fast from the push-up position, which I'm turning 40 this year, so I'm getting slower and slower at doing that.
I can do all that. It just is, my shape, my condition the next day is not as great as I'd like it to be.
Yeah, it's the next day that I'm finding that as I'm turning 40, I'm finding that it's the next day. Yeah, that's the hardest part.
Okay, so 40 is the cutoff.
So 40 is the cutoff. You got to be physically fit. Specifically for chaplains, though, we're looking for somebody with an MDiv degree, a Master's of Divinity degree, or a Master's degree in theology, religious studies of at least 72 credit hours. So, looking for that, and then a couple years of experience in what we call religious leadership experience. So, full-time, ministry experience of at least 2 years. So, somebody who's working at a church or working at a parachurch organization or something like that, and then be a U.S. citizen. Got to be a U.S. citizen, and I think I already mentioned, but be able to pass some basic physical fitness tests for the military. Those are kind of the big ones. And then we also have so to be a chaplain, you have to be endorsed by your denomination or your faith group that you belong to. So you have to get what's called an ecclesiastical endorsement, which is an official government recognized endorsement from your denomination saying that this person is fully credentialed, if you will, to be a chaplain in the Air Force. And so if you'd like more information about that, I'd say we'll provide links to our website and stuff for finding how you go about doing that.
Yeah, and I'm sure in some of those things, like some people have been disqualified, moral failure, they came out of ministry and maybe that's not possible to get that endorsement, and maybe this is not the right fit, but there's some people that they were burned out on the every Sunday and just that church group, and this is a different calling for them, and this might be a perfect fit for them.
And I'm a non-denominational guy. Like I came up in that kind of independent, charismatic church world, Christian church world, and so there are endorsing bodies out there built for those of us if anybody falls into that category like I do in the non-denominational world. So
yeah, that's good. I remember I went through some of that myself because I was coming out of a non-denominational context. So from the moment that somebody contacts you and says, I'm interested, to the moment where they get to put on their blues and actually join, how long does that process take?
So on average is about 4 to 6 months if you're coming on to the active duty side. And the reason for that lead time is we have to do a full evaluation of who you are as a person, right? Because you got to be medically qualified, you've got to be obviously professionally qualified, have all those things met. So it's about, on average between 4 to 6 months from the point at which, we get that endorsement that I was talking about, that ecclesiastical endorsement from your denomination or your faith group saying, hey, we endorse this person for military chaplaincy, to the point at which you're raising your right hand, swearing in, and we're handing you uniforms.
And give you the plane, right? You get to go fly after that?
Oh yeah. You get your personal plane. That's all part of it. Yeah,
that's awesome. The chopper picks you up.
This is not endorsed by the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.
We'll have all kinds of disclaimers after this, right?
Right.
You guys had to check us out before we actually got started with all this. It's really funny. Well, that's great. If somebody's interested and they feel like this might be a really good piece for me. I feel a calling towards this. What's a good next step?
airforce.com/chaplain. That easy. So airforce.com/chaplain. Check us out. Our email's on there. We're on Instagram at Air Force Chaplain Corps and Facebook at Air Force Chaplain Corps. Corps is CORPS. And chaplain is CHAPLAIN. Some people spell it with.
It's tricky.
Lose the last A,
If you are with the Space Force, do you actually get to go into space and be a chaplain up there?
Yeah,
when we colonize Mars.
I mean, go into space, maybe in your own mind.
There you go. That's so fun.
I did 6 years in the Space Force world. Few before I was a chaplain, and then a few after I was a chaplain. They're doing some cool stuff, man.
Yeah,
it's
pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Last question, because this podcast is called Life After Ministry.
Yeah.
Today you're experiencing life after ministry.
Yeah.
But you're also experiencing ministry after ministry.
Right.
Do you still feel that sense that you're doing the work of God outside of the walls of the church?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I in the chaplain corps, we have a saying that our normal day is to be with people on their worst day.
Ooh, that's good.
And it's so true. Like, we have the sacred opportunity to be able to sit with people who are going through some of the worst times in their lives, And I don't think there's anything more pastoral in the world that we can do than that. My senior pastor back home, he told a story about a man in his congregation that he was walking through. His wife had ALS, had contracted ALS, and was basically dying for several years. And the moment that she passed, that final moment she passed, he was sitting with him on the curb at the end of his driveway, at the end of this man's driveway, and they just wept together. Mm-hmm. And he said, there is no better sermon than I'll ever preach than that moment.
That's right.
And that's like, we get to do, as chaplains, we get to do that. That's a sacred, it's hard. The most challenging thing I've ever had to do in ministry, but it is what a sacred privilege it is, to be able to get to do that. So,
and literally the hands and feet of Jesus, right? Because if we're going to manifest a God who wants to be with us in our worst day, we need a human version of that. We need God in flesh and bone.
That's it.
And so you get to manifest that. I love that.
That's it, exactly. Yeah.
Chaplain Jordan Huggins, thanks for being with us here on Life After Ministry podcast.
Yeah, really appreciate what you guys are doing. Man, this is such a cool calling, such a cool ministry. So
yeah, God bless you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Life After Ministry podcast. Our mission is to help you navigate the complexities, the joys, and sometimes even the beautiful moments of life after ministry. Whether you're a ministry leader thinking about a transition or a stakeholder in the decision-making process, we hope these conversations bring you both clarity and comfort. And we believe that any transition can really be a gateway to transformation, and that there's not just life after ministry, but there's also ministry after ministry. If you found value in today's episode, consider subscribing to this podcast, and don't hesitate to share it with anyone that you think might benefit. The journey is sacred, and we're committed to walking alongside you, providing resources, encouragement, and a community where stories are heard and valued. And until next time, keep leaning into these opportunities, these transitions, these transformations, and the challenges that come with life after ministry.